Hi there, it's Scott Hamilton, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review, diving into the streaming HBO series 30 Coins. This popped up on my geek radar end of last year. A lot of the horror sites I follow were talking about the filmmaker who made this show, 30 Coins, and what it was going to be on HBO. And at the time, I didn't have access to HBO, wasn't really worried about shows on HBO. But I do now, and I had heard good things about 30 Coins, so I began watching it. And the first episode is about an hour and 17 minutes, so it feels like a movie. And you don't know at the end of that if it's going to be like episode, supernatural each week. They're going to run into other demons or something or whatever. And I'm going to try and avoid major spoilers since this is fairly recent and a lot of people haven't streamed it yet. But it's basically a Christian horror show, and I'll explain that in just a second. Don't think Left Behind or something like that. It doesn't have any teeth. It's just based on Christian mythology, some alternative stuff that you may or may not be familiar with. But it's a Spanish show that is basically the team-up of a priest with a dark background, some kind of strange occurrences in his background, a veterinarian, and a mayor. And they're all part of this Spanish small town where in the very first episode, crazy things are happening. And through you can tell by the opening credits, this is based on some texts that not a lot of people are familiar with, the Gospel of Judas. If you ever saw the movie Stigmata, it was based on some texts that were found in the cave over from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And some historians have always believed that these should have been included in the Testaments and in the Bibles going forward because they were just as much a part of the time, recollections, and that kind of thing that were part of it, but the church had already decided, and anyway, there's a lot of research if you want to do that. I did that when Stigmata came out. Stigmata talks about the Gospel of Thomas, which is one of these lost Gospels, and in there, supposedly, Jesus said that, you could split a piece of wood, you'll find me there, I'm in you, I'm in everything, basically saying you don't need a church to worship me. And the church, the idea of that movie is the church really didn't want that gospel out there because then they would not really need to exist. So this show is using the Gospel of Judas, another gospel along that basically posits that Judas did not betray Jesus, but actually did exactly what Jesus wanted him to do. And the 30 coins of the name of the series are what he was paid. So I don't understand all of the mythology, even after watching all 8 episodes, on why would these coins be cursed if he was doing... Anyway, that's not what's important. But there are factions involved in the show that want to get all of the coins. And the vet winds up with one of these coins. And the veterinarian and the mayor and the priest have an adventure that lasts 8 episodes. Each one's an hour, except for the first one that's an hour and 17. And it takes its time. It builds characters. But like I said, it's based on Christian mythology, but don't think it's something like Left Behind or The Leftovers or anything like that. This is definitely a horror show. They are fans of The Thing. They are fans of Cthulhu stuff. It gets deep into some mythology. It stays kind of gritty and down to earth. And then all of a sudden there'll be I don't want to do spoilers, but there'll be things you're like, this is kind of batshit crazy. And that's what I liked about it. And when it was over, there needs to be a second season, and they haven't fully announced one yet, but there is a good possibility. It debuted back in November, and people are just now starting to really talk about it. And I like horror stuff, so as horror goes, it goes pretty far between horror tropes. There'll be a lot of drama, a lot of mythology, a lot of world building, and then all of a sudden somebody gets cut in half and all their insides fall out. But it's not continuous bloodletting. So it's kind of shocking when it happens, or when a quote unquote creature appears, and I don't even want to get into that. It's definitely a little more serious than something like Supernatural. It's an interesting show for 8 episodes of a horror show that's based on some Christian mythology, some alternative stuff. I really enjoyed it. I was very excited to watch the end, but it's funny. It's not a show that I wanted to binge in any way, shape, or form. When I was done with an episode, I would be done for that day and wait till the next day to watch the next one. So it took me over a week to watch the series. I did watch the last 2 episodes back to back because it's, well, you just kind of have to. It is kind of a cliffhanger, and the whole story does connect. In the beginning, the first few episodes feel kind of disjointed. They're the same characters, the same town, but different events are happening, and they're not putting it all together. At least some of the characters are not putting everything together that everything's connected or whatever. But when they do, the storyline picks up. It's definitely rated R for violence, sex, nudity, It does have an edge. It's still not unrated movie territory as far as the gore level or how horrible it gets. It's still very much an HBO show, but it does push the envelope a little bit, and it is pretty gory. And not a lot of sex, but there is some nudity and sex, and that was pretty well done as well. All in all, it's a very interesting and entertaining show because above all, they're not trying to get any kind of message through or heaven forbid, any kind of ideals through or whatever. This is basically a very entertaining, popcorn munching, audience pleasing action horror show with some interesting drama going on. And I haven't watched a whole lot of Spanish TV shows, but I like the edge of this. I like how it was put together. There were a few times here and there I wish they would kind of get to the point, but building characters, it made it a lot more impactful towards the end when certain things happen. So I can't really talk much more about it without getting into spoilers and spoil. We will do a second podcast at some point and talk about spoilers. But if you're looking for horror, you don't mind some gore, it's a little dark, it's a little creepy. And not every episode is the same. Don't expect like what happens in that opening hour and 17-minute movie is what happens every single episode. It does change. It does grow. The characters evolve. The situation evolves. And the final 2 episodes you'll probably want to watch back to back. But it's a great show to watch an episode and then wait a day or 2 and watch another one where you can kind of sit and ruminate on it and swish it around in your mouth and get all the flavors that they were trying to impart into the show. And I'll be interested to watch it again. Mostly subtitled, mostly in Spanish. There's a little Italian, a little English. I think that was all of the languages. Oh, no, there's some stuff in Syria. So if you can keep up with all that, it's definitely becomes a more epic show by the last 2 episodes. But it's still, most things are centered on the main characters in this small town. And it's very well done in that aspect, and I'm really hoping there will be a season 2. I really enjoyed 30 Coins. Anyway, it's not the easiest thing to recommend. I mean, my grandma was still around and be like, no, Ma, no, this is probably not something you want to watch. But you know, in the slate of Amazon and HBO shows that have the R-rated violence of gore, I don't know why The Boys popped into my head. I guess because there's a lot of entrails in The Boys. But it's not as bad as something like that as far as the gore goes. But there are some interesting practical effects and creations. There's not a lot of CG, which is great. And it's very, I don't want to get into spoilers, so check it out. 30 Coins, it is streaming on HBO Max right now, and they're hinting around that there may be a second season, so go watch it so the streaming numbers get up and we get a second season, because I want to see where the story goes after this. Podcasts are going to be moving to video podcasts over the weekend. I was able to get some work done on my new office, and once I get things a little bit more set up, you'll be able to watch me do this live as kind of a YouTuber more than a podcaster. But I will still release an audio-only version for those that don't need to see my lovely face babbling at you. I'm Scott Hamilton. I am ROCKFILE. My website is therockfile.com. Check it out for the latest, the links, and a whole lot more. Thank you for listening, sharing, subscribing. It all means so much. Have a fantastic day.